because we're really proud of our heritage in construction and civil engineering, and also our strong links with industry. It's really in our DNA to be working with industry, and it's great to invite people and partners to this event this morning. So as a university, sustainability and net zero are very much at the heart of our strategy 2025 that myself and colleagues across the university are driving forward. And also it sits at the heart of a lot of our world-leading research and innovation initiatives from across all of our campuses. We're a global institution with campuses, 3 campuses here in Scotland, but also campuses in Dubai and Malaysia. So we've got groundbreaking developments. I was over at COP earlier in the week with our inventor of K-bricks, Professor Gabby Madero, so sustainable bricks made from construction waste. Very, very exciting company being developed there. And ranging to really our Centre of Excellence in Smart Construction, which actually sits in our Dubai campus. We've also just recently been awarded a £20 million UK project on decarbonisation, and a lot of really exciting new projects in sustainable energy as well. So it's a fantastic time to be doing this event today. And of course, another area is our National Robotarium, which will be opening next March, I think, at the forefront of robotics and AI, which again is really important for the construction centre. And delighted to say there that we're working with our partner, Robertson Group, and it's looking fantastic, the new building there. So great that we've got Gavin here today to talk about Robertson's approach to sustainability. Sorry?
I have to check the authority limit law.
I see.
Okay, I think someone needs to mute, I think. So after we hear from Gavin, today's event, as David said, is all about giving you the opportunity to share challenges and for us to have a discussion. So I'm really looking forward to that part. And I'm going to join in the panel with a number of other, a number of experts. I definitely wouldn't say I was an expert, to share their insight and explore what support is really available to help you with these challenges as we move ahead. So for me, it's always really exciting to see education and industry come together in events like this, and we're delighted to have colleagues from West Lothian College, West Lothian Council, Skills Development Scotland and Construction Scotland here today. One of our Strategy 2025 themes is building flourishing communities, so these partnerships are so important to build flourishing communities. And then not to forget our own colleagues that are here today, our programme directors from the courses, and also my team from the graduate apprenticeship programme. And I think that just embodies why collaboration is so key as we move forward and all try and recover from the pandemic. So I'm really interested to hear the talks and the feedback, and I'd encourage everyone in the call today really to engage with the panel and share your experiences, and hopefully from there we'll be able to identify key themes, not only the challenges, but I am a solutions person, so I'll be checking that we come up with some solutions. So to kick off today's session, I'm really pleased to hand over to Gavin Allen, Sustainability Coordinator at Robertson Group.
Thanks very much, Jill.
Gavin, I'll just load up your slides and share my screen, okay? And you can just give me the nudge when you want to move on.
Perfect, will do. Slides up. There we go. So, hi, thanks for the introduction. So my name is Gavin Allen. I'm the Group Sustainability Coordinator for Robertson Group. So I started about 6 months ago with the business. Really enjoying it so far. I originally came from, it was a compliance background in metering and utilities. So construction industry is relatively new to me, but I'm really enjoying it so far. So hopefully this presentation won't run on too long. I have timed it, I've halved it because I've got a wee bit of a habit of rambling on. So hopefully it'll be quite short and interesting. So if we could move on to our first slide. So
sorry,
for Robertson, oh, sorry. So let's keep an eye on that as well.
My bad.
Okay, so our purpose. So the building you can see there is actually the Macallan Distillery up in the Highlands. It was, I think, completed in 2018. It was one of our major projects, and I'm sure you can agree it's quite a stunning building, and it fits well with the landscape. So Robertson is one of the largest family-owned construction infrastructure and support service businesses in the UK. So ultimately, everything we do is about making progress safely towards a sustainable future for our people, our communities, and our business. So at Robertson, our purpose is to assure a sustainable future, and that really sets the direction for everyone within the business. So our responsible business approach aligns with our UN Sustainable Development Goals. We utilise this to ensure that we can deliver on our purpose. So next slide, please. It's probably easier if I just say next slide. That's fine, thanks. So I'm sure you're aware, so 80% of the UK public are fairly concerned or very concerned about climate change in some recent surveys. Now we know that the Scottish Government are focusing on being greener, fairer, more prosperous country, and a large part of that is obviously focused around net zero. England also want to build back better, greener and faster. So together, both countries have set ambitious carbon reduction and net zero targets. So there's a real focus on using the climate emergency to develop manufacturing and industry and creating jobs, upskill and develop people. So it's not just about emissions. Obviously, this is a lot more, obviously, I think, to do with the people. So 90% of the UK local authorities have now declared a climate emergency. And this really highlights how seriously the public sector are taking sustainability issues. So now on the next slide, I'll just get David to play as a short video on our responsible business targets.
Gavin, I'm just going to stop sharing and then reshare because I've just had a wee
Sure.
message pop up about my system audio, but I'll fix that in 1 second.
No worries.
And just let me know. Hopefully this will come through. I think I fixed it.
Robertson is one of the largest family-owned construction, infrastructure and support services businesses in the UK.
There we go.
With the recent review of our responsible business strategy, we've improved our approach to further support the UN Sustainable Development Goals for the year 2030.
From the implementation of our Home Safe programme and flexible working approach, through to our Investors in People and Young People accreditation, we've taken huge strides to modernise our workplace.
Through established partnerships with our customers, supply chain and respected industry bodies, we've invested locally in skills and development.
And we've worked to significantly reduce our emissions through targeted and meaningful measures. In 2018-19, we became a carbon neutral accredited business through carbon offsetting.
We've made great progress already, but we need to do more. The choices we make today will have significant benefits for all. Our 2030 responsible business targets will continue to drive our business forward.
By 2030, we will have enhanced the lives of 10,000 people by creating work placements and job opportunities, and by supporting apprenticeships, upskilling and new qualifications.
By 2030, we will have created £1 billion worth of social value by spending locally in the areas where our projects are, and with social enterprises, micro businesses and SMEs.
By 2030, we'll move beyond being a carbon neutral business to become climate positive, generating zero emissions from our offices, commercial fleet and construction sites within our control. We will create a biodiversity net gain on our projects and become carbon positive through our offsetting.
We've committed to implementing 100% renewable energy tariffs for our sites, offices and factories, and offering those same green energy tariffs to our customers and supply chain. Using alternative sustainable fuels and technologies for our sites and plants, transitioning to an all-electric commercial vehicle fleet, and decarbonising our customers and supply chain.
Robertson is determined to succeed in delivering its 2030 responsible business targets. We're making progress towards a better and more sustainable way of working. For whatever challenges lie ahead, we're ready.
Okay, so hopefully that gives you a good insight to Robertson Group. So the slide we have there is our responsible business roadmap. So Robertson started looking at their emissions in 2014. So they were able to evaluate a baseline of emissions. So 4 years later, in 2018, they were able to deliver a 16% reduction in emissions. They established a sustainability team, which was up until April, it was just my boss, Graham Hanna, which he's done a pretty good job for just being one man. And we also launched our responsible business policy. So 2019, we were able to deliver a 23% reduction. And for offsetting emissions, we became carbon neutral. So we are also accredited through One Carbon World as well, and they have ties to the UN. So it's a great piece that we're doing through them. In 2020, we were able to offset by a 40% reduction in carbon, and then we launched our Responsible Business 2030 strategy and targets. Now, fortunately, this year, 2021, we were able to 48% reduction, which basically means our offsets are more than we've generated. So now we are technically a climate positive organisation, which we're really proud of. And our overall aim, obviously, by 2030 is to ensure that we remain climate positive, ensure that we consistently offset more than we're generating. And I think with new technologies coming out all the time, especially with COP, I think that the target is realistic, which is great. And then overall, obviously, Scotland's main target is net zero by 2045. So we'll move on to the next slide. So our key initiatives, we, as I said, we have our 2030 plans, responsible business plan. So along with that, we also have a 2030 carbon management plan. Now we use the carbon management plan to drive our climate positive targets and basically help with our 2030 ambitions. When it comes to sustainable energy and fuels, there's quite a lot of really interesting things happening. I'm sure you are all quite aware. So we have, obviously, construction sites have multiple pieces of equipment like plant equipment and also, diesel generators just to be able to provide power to the site. Now, ideally, we obviously want to be able to go on to the mains energy as quickly as possible. Sometimes that's not possible right away just because of the kind of geography. So we are, I'm excited to say, actually, we are looking to kind of go into a renewable construction site whereby hopefully we can eliminate or have a very low carbon site. We're working with an oil, well, it's actually an oil company, or was an oil company, sorry, in the northeast of Scotland. So hopefully there'll be a bit more on that next year. But currently we are using hybrid generators, so they're able to charge batteries throughout the day. So instead of having a generator, say, running 24 hours on diesel, it's possible we'll have it running 12 hours and then 12 hours of battery life. Now, as a replacement for diesel, we're also trialling HVO on our sites, which is hydrotreated vegetable oil, and sometimes it's called Green D+. Now that reduces our carbon by 90%, which obviously is a huge saving. It's a like-for-like replacement as well. So the feedback so far is smooth sailing. It's the exact same, pretty much working with diesel. So hopefully we'll be able to roll it out to more sites until we have obviously a more renewable solution. So our net zero fleet, all our FM vans are now electric vans. Our fleet list for the organisation actually just went out the other day, and we're fully focused on electric and plug-in hybrids for the organisation. Carbon literacy training. So we feel it's important that obviously Robertson has 3,000 plus employees. It's really important that they're educated on carbon literacy. It's all well and good, when we go to these projects and the clients are asking for, they may want a net zero build. Now, it's important that our employees understand what that means. So we teamed up with Keep Scotland Beautiful, an organisation I think based in Stirling, and we're rolling this training out across the business. That should start next year. So like I said, it'll just give staff an overall better understanding of what carbon literacy is, what net zero is, because it's a wee bit of a buzzword, I suppose, in our industry. Maybe a lot of people don't quite understand it. So it's just giving them the education that they need to understand, and hopefully they can also contribute going forward to being able to cut emissions. And also we have a SEPA agreement called the Sustainable Growth Agreement. Now it's the first of its kind. We basically partnered up with SEPA to ensure a sustainable future. We're both really excited to be a part of this. I know that they're now rolling it out. There's more organisations being involved in it. It's basically, instead of SEPA appearing on site and everyone, kind of getting a bit panicky, we're working with them, not against them, and I think that's really important. So we started just a few months ago with liaising with them, so I have meetups, and we go through basically what Robertson do, what we can do better, and it's really good just to have that advice there available to us. So I highly recommend if anyone does want to kind of do the same, get in touch with SEPA. I really think it could be something very useful for future. So next slide, please. So just to show you some of our infrastructure. So you may have seen on, I think the BBC done an article on Scotland's first net zero hospital up in Orkney. It's called the Balfour. Robertson completed this project a few years ago. It is like I said, it's the first net zero hospital. You can possibly see from the picture there are a lot of solar panels on the roof, but as far as the design goes, it was actually designed to the landscape of Orkney, and basically it was to do with the design of the island, and from way back when they still have huts in the ground, and it's well worth, actually, if you ever get a chance to go to Orkney, it's well worth seeing. We also have we built TECA, which is the Aberdeen Exhibition Centre. It was built, I think it was completed just before the pandemic. So it's the UK's largest hydrogen fuel cell installation. Now, TECA is in a very key place for hydrogen just now. Obviously, Aberdeen is kind of converting itself from an oil and gas into a hydrogen city. So it's I've not been fortunate enough to go to the building yet, but I'm quite looking forward to it. And we also have our COP26 zero emissions house. Now, if any of you get a chance, if you're in Glasgow, please go down. It's just off the Clyde, so just along from like the Jury's Inn. That's the best way of describing it. Like when you're walking towards the hydro, you can go on site, you can view the house. So at project level, we recently, obviously, like I said, completed it for it's called the COP26 house. So an embodied carbon project in Glasgow, which is basically a huge support material and a huge range of partners. The project has some great outcomes as well. So it's bettering the RIBA 2030 challenge targets of embodied carbon up to 22%, which is a really good achievement. Next slide, please. So as you've seen in the video, we have our responsible business 2030 targets. So we're quite open about this and quite happy, obviously, to share the figures. So currently, with the first year, we've enhanced the lives of 598 people. So obviously, long way to go, but it's early days, and luckily we've got 9 years left. Delivering the £1 billion of social value. So we're off to a really good start with that, with £202.9 million already put in. Becoming climate positive, so with 48.4% since 2014-15, which is a great achievement. Obviously, we can do a lot more, and it is our full aim to ensure that we'll reach our target by 2030. Next slide, please. So this may not look too much like we put much information in the graph, but it does tell a story. So if we focus specifically on carbon, and we've made significant reductions in our carbon intensity so far. So almost halving our emissions intensity, obviously since 2014 and 15 baseline. and 18.4 versus our rebase from last year, where we did expand our scope of what we report on. Next slide, and hopefully you'll be able to see. So from 2018, we had our offset all our emissions to tree planting and funding energy generation, renewable energy generation in developing nations to become carbon neutral. So as a result of making a carbon reduction and maintaining our offsetting levels from last year, we've now moved from being carbon neutral into becoming climate positive. So we are really proud of that achievement. And as you can see, obviously, again, long way to go, but our 2030 target does look realistic. So that's almost it from me. So we'll just do one more slide after this, just because I did say I would mention this. So obviously, our own operational carbon footprint. So like I said, we're looking into renewable energy. We're looking into, we're looking at a typical construction site and say, how can we be better? This also can include materials like the K-brick that was mentioned before. So the K-brick is a brilliant design. I was actually on the Hamilton Waste site a few weeks ago, had a tour of the site, and I think they should do tours all the time. I think it's fantastic what they do. Basically, we walked through from a mixed recycling skip, and it was the full process and how it's recycled. If only some of the major waste organisations done the same, I don't think we'd have much of an issue. But the K-brick is 90% reduction in carbon as well. Sorry, so it's obviously made of demolition rubble, and it doesn't take near as much energy to create, which is brilliant. I think they're planning on making, I think it's 2 million a year, I think they said originally. So hopefully they get the support they need, and hopefully Robertson will be able to help with that support. And I think that's also very important. So yesterday I was at an event at Construction Scotland Innovation Centre, and there was myself and a few others within the industry, and we were all working together, which I think is what's required, especially for our 2045 targets. So you also see their whole life carbon environmental impact of our customer projects. Now, obviously, as a contractor, we're working for people and organisations. It's fantastic when you have a client that wants to be, they want a net zero build. They want to ensure that we record our embodied carbon. They want to make sure that they've got possibly a passive house, possibly something that's a timber frame. We do obviously have the other side of that, where clients do want to just, they want to build a building possibly as cheaply as possible. Now, our supply chain is key to that, because what we do is we obviously do cost analysis, and ideally it's now shifting that the renewable option, the most sustainable option, is now price competitive, which is fantastic, because if it's price competitive, this means that we can phase out a lot of these raw materials that aren't sustainable. So that's one of the key factors as well. Another thing I should mention is biodiversity is something we're really starting to look into, and we're really quite keen to get a high percentage on biodiversity net gain. I know England, obviously we also work in Northern England. Their legislation is slightly different, so we do have to ensure that there's some biodiversity net gain or neutral down in North sites. But to us, it's really important because it also helps local community as well, and it's all about people to us, and it's really important. So that's about it for me. So thank you very much for listening. Hopefully I was within my time, I hope, and I'll pass you back to David. Thank you.
Thanks, Gavin. Just about. Thanks, everyone. So listen, there's some fantastic information in there, and hopefully that's given everybody plenty of food for thought for the Q&A session. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to just have a series of short presentations from Diane from West Lothian College, Lynn from Heriot-Watt, and Jim from West Lothian Business Gateway. So it's really just about flagging up the types of support and the resources that are available to employers to help alleviate maybe some of the issues that you're facing. So without any further ado, Diane, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thanks, David, and morning everyone, and thanks for coming along to the West Lothian College Heriot-Watt and Business Gateway event. So I have less than 5 minutes and to tell you all about what West Lothian College can offer you right now to support your business. So as said there, West Lothian College, I'm Diane Mitchell, Director of Workforce Development, and with me on the call today I've got Graham Clark, who's the Director of Computing Engineering, the Built Environment and Science. Now we have got quite a bit to rattle through, so I have put our contact details there just for you to get in touch after this if you'd like to know more about it. So next slide please, David. So these are the 6 topics I'd quickly like to run through with you today. The first one is the Flexible Workforce Development Fund. So did you know that every business in Scotland has access up to £5,000, and large businesses who pay apprenticeship levy have access to up to £15,000 to support your existing staff to undertake training. So there's no catch, it's just you have got this money to work with colleges to undertake short courses, SVQs, management, health and safety, or just something you might need bespoke to you. Sole trader, charity, whatever organisation you might be, you've got access to that money. And I would hate to think there's people in this call that have got training they need to do and that they've got access to this funding and not using it. So the next thing we've got is our modern apprenticeship programmes. So there's a bit of a myth about modern apprenticeships, that modern apprenticeships are about recruiting a new member of staff. And they can be, but also you might have an existing member of staff who you might want to put through training. So if you're looking to recruit a new member of staff or you've got an existing member of staff, then we'll have a framework to suit you, a modern apprenticeship training programme to suit you. And we have it in a variety of sectors. It could be management, it could be storage and warehousing, business admin, engineering, digital marketing, procurement, lots of sectors, but of course, construction. So with funding from Skills Development Scotland, who is great to see on the call today, your staff member will undertake training with a highly experienced work-based assessor, working with your staff to support them through the qualification. But as you'd expect from a college, we've also got full-time provision that goes on. And where again we have a whole host of training in Graham's department and Graham's faculty that undertakes that, whether that includes civil engineering, construction management, architectural technology, built environment, retrofitting, quantity surveying, installation and building techniques. I could go on, there's a whole raft of qualifications there. But we know for organisations that it's not always easy to send staff full-time. So many of the qualifications we also put on part-time provision. So that could be online, it could be evening, it could be day release. But we make sure that we're there to accommodate what your employees need. So the other thing that we're doing more and more now and been asked to do is training needs analysis. That's really a fancy term to say that the college can come into your organisation, meet with your key colleagues and really look at where your current skills gaps lie and see what provision we can put in place to meet your requirements. So it's really getting in there and getting under and looking at what we can do to support your organisation. And lastly, West Lothian College prides itself in our college employer partnerships, and I see some employers here already that we work with. So whether it be with you coming to support us to develop the curriculum so that we know that we are meeting your future workforce needs, or working with you right now to assist you to recruit new staff from our pool of students or upskill existing staff, then that's what we're here to do. Gone are the days when we used to show up to businesses, set out our stall and say, what do you want off of here? Now it's more like going into businesses and actually saying, what do you need? Going back to the college and then putting that type of provision together to make sure that we're there to meet your workforce needs. So I think I've kept that to 5 minutes. I think I've kept it about 2 or 3 minutes, but I'll make sure everyone gets my contact details. And if you want to know anything more about any of these programmes or anything else we can do, please get in touch. We want to hear from you. And the other thing, just as an open offer to everyone here, if anybody wants to come up, see our college facilities, get a tour round, come and have a coffee, feel free to get in touch and we'd love to take you around our facilities. We're really proud of them, so we'd love to share that with you. So thank you, and I'll hand you back over to David.
Thanks, Diane. So we're now going to move on to Lynn. Lynn, over to you.
Thanks, Leanne. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all well. My name is Lynn Somerville. I'm a Business Relationship Manager on the Graduate Apprenticeship Programme at Heriot-Watt University. So not to distract the main aim and mission of the event, I'm just going to give you a very high-level overview of the types of support and assistance that we can offer in support of your organisation. Next slide, please. Graduate apprenticeships are fully funded by the Scottish Funding Council and Sales Development Scotland. They are a groundbreaking initiative that employers from all across Scotland utilise in order to bridge skills gaps and/or succession plan. So employers can engage with the programme to upskill their current workforce or to attract new talent to the business. Either option will result in the employee being degree qualified and discipline relevant to the role that they carry out on behalf of the business. Although the graduate apprenticeship programme came into creation in 2017 to assist industry in meeting its demands, the Scottish Government decides it has been a key component to Scotland's economic recovery as we come out of COVID. The GA programme, I'd say, is somewhat of a hidden and untapped gem in that it not only offers a win-win scenario for both the employer and the employee, but a byproduct of which is that it will ultimately drive economic growth across Scotland. I'm really sorry, I've just been told that it's quite difficult to hear me. I've actually come into the office today and not brought my headphones. So can you hear me okay? Can someone tell me if you're able to hear me?
We can hear you. It's David. It just sounds a little bit echoey.
Okay, I'll try and bring the computer closer. I do apologise. I came without my headphones. I don't know whether you heard that or not.
That's a wee bit better.
A wee bit better. I'll maybe just get back a little bit. So graduate apprenticeships are funded by the Scottish Funding Council and Skills Development Scotland. The main aim of which is to help employers across sector to bridge skills gaps and succession plan. They're somewhat untapped by a lot of organisations in that they offer a win-win for both the employer, the candidate, and ultimately they drive economic growth across Scotland. You maybe go on to the next slide. Thanks, David. You'll note here that we offer 9 fully funded programmes. Normally, typically, we would only offer an intake in September, but in response to COVID, we're now running 2 intakes. So one in September that's just passed, and we're running a second intake this January. Notably for those that are on this call, that includes the civil engineering and construction and built environment intake. So if you are interested in either upskilling your current workforce or recruiting, to take part in that programme, again, commencing in January, please reach out to me. I would say the deadline for applications is in December, so please note that date. These slides are hyperlinked and will be sent around to all attendees post the event. So you'll be able to click through for further information. Of course, you can reach out to me via the contact details. Next slide, please, David. So I'm listing a very small selection of the hundreds of graduate apprenticeship employers that Heriot-Watt works with. You'll see that we work cross-sector with both large and small organisations. Next slide, please, David. Okay, so although in main I work with employers to access the graduate apprenticeship programmes in terms of helping them upskill and succession plan, I also act as a conduit for organisations to work with Heriot-Watt in many other ways. Now, Jill touched on this, and we really do pride ourselves in working with industry. So, for example, and again, these are hyperlinked, so when you get the slides, you'll be able to click through for further information. So again, for example, you and your colleagues may wish to access a fully funded master level course. There's some nice course offerings that are currently on offer at the moment, so including MSc in Logistics and Supply Chain Management, Business Analytics, Big Data, Digital Leadership, to just name a few. If your organisation is looking to recruit suitably qualified postgraduate students, my colleagues in the Graduate Futures and Careers Department would be more than willing to help you with that. And there's opportunity to work with the university in commercial capacity. Maybe you want to partner with us in an industry collaboration, you have a research need, you maybe want space in a research park. So there's multiple ways that we can work with you. So again, if you have any questions regarding that, don't hesitate to ask, and I would also act as a conduit to put you through to the correct person. So that's me for now. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Lynn. Okay, I'm just going to hand over to Jim.
David, thanks for that, and morning to you all. Jim Henderson, my contact details are on the slide there. Be very keen if there's anything out of today's presentation that you would like either clarified or to discuss. Next slide, please. So in terms of the Business Gateway team, very much part of West Lothian Council. It's always been delivered in-house, and it's really governed by a few things. One is it's commercial in confidence. We work with businesses, they choose to work with us from the earliest stage, be that the startup. I've noted there that we work with more than 300 new starts every year. And again, construction is very much part of that. That could be people setting out on their own. At that stage will help them. And really the key thing for us is about that local economic impact. So new start businesses are worth over £20 million every year to the West Lothian economy. So that's the key driver for us. Next slide, please. And on the existing businesses, and it's great to see some well-kent faces here today from the area, construction very much part of our key business sector. Now, in terms of the in-depth support that we provide, it is prioritised to a smaller number of key sectors. And that's because we have to prioritise what we do to make the most economic impact. And for us, one of our key metrics is about that local PAYE. So as a council organisation, we have to do what's right for our area. And one of the best ways that we can do that is to create higher value employment in West Lothian. So we sit just above the national averages for both Scotland and UK in terms of average wages. The challenge for us is to support and attract businesses in the area, to get more into the area that are going to pay better wages. And that, for that tells us that there's better skills. So all this dovetails into our colleagues at SDS, at the college, at Heriot-Watt. It's all about upskilling and raising the value of the businesses and the jobs that are in the area. And in terms of what the team does there, the businesses that we support, although it's only a targeted selection, they account for over 30% of the total GVA of the West Lothian economy. And again, that's our focus. We're using a scarce resource to get the most economic return for it. And again, although that's not all the jobs in the area, we've got approximately 75,000 jobs in West Lothian, and we're working about 20% there. It's a disproportionate effect of economic impact, and that's the key contributor for us. David, I think that's me at this stage.
Great, thanks, Jim. Thanks for that. Okay, folks. So that's the, as I say, they were just a series of short presentations giving a very high level overview of what the college, the uni, and the West Lothian Business Gateway can provide to employers, not just West Lothian, but again further afield. So really, now the main aim of this part of the session is really to hear from you, the audience. Really, we're really keen to hear from what sort of key challenges you're facing in the construction sector just now. Some of the things you've heard, like from Gavin, etc., may have prompted some thoughts. So really, so over to you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and we can get people on screen. And I'll keep an eye out for any hands going up. But please, as Jill said at the top of the session, we're really keen for you to engage as much as possible with the panel that's here today. I'll hand it over. So please, if you get any questions you'd like to ask, over to you guys. I'll keep a wee eye out for hands going up. Hi, Graham.
Thanks, David. Is it okay for me to jump in with a question just to start it up? So that was really interesting. Thanks to the presenters for their presentations in turn. If I could just ask a question of Gavin, it was really interesting what's happening at Robertson Group. there's a lot of impressive work going on there. I'd just like to ask a question just around the generation of all the data that allows you to track those metrics. Can you maybe say something about how that's all the work that goes on to get to that point, Gavin?
Yeah, sure. So we have a partnership with BRE, and we use an online system called Smart Waste. So what happens is we record basically our waste figures, our energy figures, water figures. We're starting now to kind of include transport figures of materials, including staff transport to site. And basically every month, each site updates where they're at. So like I said, their energy uses, their waste. And basically we then fill out a report each month to monitor where we're at and how much we're using. So some of the sites, it's obviously taken a bit longer than others, but I think everyone's on quite a good path now, and they understand that we need to record to be more sustainable. I think as soon as that message gets through that, you know, we record all this for a reason. I think especially in the construction industry, everyone's really busy. When you put another piece of software towards them, they're not too impressed. But they do understand how important it is to capture this carbon data. And so obviously we can reduce it and maintain our main 2030 goals.
Okay, thank you. There's obviously a lot goes on under the bonnet to get to that. Thanks.
Thanks, Graham. Thanks, Gavin. Lynn, hi.
Thanks, David. I hope you can hear me. It's just to circle back on what you've mentioned there, Gavin, about the software. So we have Ron Fraser on the call, who's chair of Construction Scotland, and Ron and I had a chat about this, and there've been parity between your larger construction organisations and your smaller SMEs and micro businesses where they maybe don't have the capacity or capability of accessing some of that software. Ron, can I maybe bring you in to offer comment on that, if you're still there? One of the things that Ron had mentioned, it was on a call with David and I, is that there is disparity where some of your construction organisations that hire and subcontract to your smaller outfits, the smaller outfits can't compete and keep up with the software that they're using, and they don't speak with one another, so that they're not backward compatible, if you like. So then it's the smaller organisations in a place where they're not able to compete or bid contracts.
Yeah, no, I understand. So what we do on each site, basically what we do in that situation is we capture the information from the SMEs. So obviously where the materials are coming from, we receive the delivery notes, and then we do a bit of work there as well. Obviously, the majority of Robertson sites we're able to record all our procurement coming in, but with SMEs, and you know, like we wouldn't expect, you know, like a joiner that just went out on his own to fill in all this data. So potentially we would basically do that as part of the project for him, where that's obviously, it's like I said, you know, recording from the sign-in sheets for the mileage, materials from their transfer notes. So we would kind of obtain the data for them.
Cool.
That's good to hear.
Thanks, Gavin. Archie, I'll bring you in a second. I just want to bring Ron in just now. Ron, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I can come in now. Just maybe not a good person to be commenting on digitisation, given the problems I'm having with my own digitisation this morning. But yeah, absolutely, Lynn. Construction Scotland, some may know, is the industry leadership group for the industry sector, and we're working and have been working closely with Scottish Government, Scottish Futures Trust over the last couple of years, particularly through COVID, and prior to that on a recovery plan for the industry, which is gradually morphing away from being recovery because the industry more or less has recovered and is now hitting different problems, but more into a transformation plan as we go forward. Obviously, a big plank of that is the net zero thing. We'll maybe come back to that in a minute about you know, the industry's approach to that. But linked to that, obviously, is the digitisation agenda. And what we recognise is that many tier ones, and by tier ones I mean, you know, main contractors like Robertson and others who engage with big supply chains, they are already well ahead of many of their customers in terms of the use of digital tools and techniques. And when we were doing our surveys and consultations for the transformation plan, we heard from quite a number of smaller companies, SMEs, and that who, particularly those who don't work in the supply chain of a Robertson. If you work in the supply chain of a Robertson, then you're probably being asked for things, and it's driving your digitization anyway. But a lot of smaller companies are nervous about investing in the training and the software and the techniques because they don't know what's going to be needed, and because and what we're trying to do is develop a digital strategy that draws on what government are going to ask us to provide, what you're going to need to have to interface with building standards, what you're going to need to have to interface with planning applications, what major tier ones are looking for, what government are looking for, what clients are looking for, and try and get a sense of what is available out there in software and in training, but make it accessible to SMEs, but also explain why they might want to do it, i.e. what benefits they're going to get from it, and simplify it and demystify it. Because and one of the issues I think is that too much is based around software companies. What we're trying to get to, and I apologise to the data specialists. I'm a civil engineer, not a data analyst. But as I understand it, it's not about the software. It's about the form in which the data is retained so that it can be transferred. So it's about making sure that people get their data documented in the right format so that it can be recognised by the software that, say, planning, building standards, Robertson, and whatever other client they might end up with, is able to read and able to use and able to formalize. So, and the point about what we were talking about, Lynn, was that it's quite difficult in a sector that has maybe 30,000 businesses in it. Our research is indicating the industry probably employs in total maybe 300,000 people, 30,000 businesses, which you can tell you that the average business is pretty small. Very, very hard for a national organisation like Construction Scotland, or even Scottish Government, SFD, to reach that number of people, or even a proportion of it. So what we're beginning to think is that we need to form connections to sort of regional groupings, groups that include colleges, local authorities in an area, who know far better, and have more entrails, shall we say, or into the local construction population, and can actually access people a lot better. And yeah, we've been trying to identify. Interestingly enough, that you're not alone in what you're doing here. There are other, but not the same, but slightly the same groups being formed in Fife and in the southwest and different parts of the country. People are coming together to form sort of construction clubs, as it were, or to try and bring the local employers and the local colleges, the local universities, that together. And we are looking to maybe trial how we can best work with those kind of groupings to access the kind of people on this call. Anyway, so I'll stop speaking, and maybe somebody in the audience can comment on their access to digital technology and skills, and what support they would actually need really to help them propel that forward.
Archie, do you want to come on there?
Yeah, thanks. Firstly, Gavin, excellent presentation. Commend Robertson's for the good work they're doing and getting in front of the 8 ball. I was at a presentation 2 weeks ago, and it was an investment organisation, and construction was the worst for EBITDA deterioration because of their approach to the environmental issues. So it'll stand Robertson's in good stead going forward, and hopefully can be a template to the other organisations, the lower tier organisations coming through. So yeah, well done. The other thing I wanted to ask was West Lothian College and Heriot-Watt University. What is is there a synergy between the two organisations now, whereby you have trainees coming in at college level and then aspiring to then go on to do further studies at university? Is there a Is there a strong link between the two organisations now?
I'll let Diane answer that. Diane.
Yeah, thanks, Archie. So what we're trying to do is, and what we're finding is that when we're approaching employers, we're getting in with what we can do, and we're realising then with their gaps where perhaps they're looking for higher level study than we can do, and vice versa with Heriot-Watt. So what we're trying to do is we're going out to organisations and actually almost approaching them with one employer offer. And that's where we're working with the Business Gateway as well. Yeah. So to say, so what can the college do for you? And here's Heriot-Watt that can do that part of it. So for example, modern apprentices can take you this far. Here's Heriot-Watt that can do the graduate apprenticeship area. Here's Business Gateway that can support you with funding, and then really just going out with one employer offer. So that's the thinking behind it. So Lynn and I work closely to make sure that our pathways are aligned, really, to make sure that, because there's nothing worse than going out and saying we can't do things. So it's working well, actually.
Good. Sorry, that wasn't me. I wasn't coming at that. I wasn't a loaded question. I'll explain my thought process to you on that. A few years ago, we identified that we had an ageing workforce, and that we needed to really invest in young blood coming through the organisation. And we started to deliver a lot of our traditional trades in-house rather than the subcontract route. But what we've found is by coming through the craft route, the traditional trades route, that you're identifying rising stars that go to college, really do well, but then they can, from that, it's given them the spark to go on further. So, you know, that's, I'm thinking somebody doing, say, an HNC, for example, and then going on to do a university degree. So, yeah, that's good. Yeah,
that's a perfect example. That's where we work quite closely together, don't we, Diane? And then you have the master level courses that you mentioned as well. But yeah.
Excellent. Right, thank you.
Thanks, Archie. Good question. Listen, so I've got a couple of hands up. Bethany, did you have something to add to the sort of digital thing or the skills thing from an SDS point of view? I'll come to you in a few seconds, Neil. Okay, thanks.
Just to come in on the sort of digital skills agenda from a skills perspective, it's really just to highlight that digital skills are going to be central to upskilling the future workforce and ensuring the circular economy and achieving those net zero targets. And to address some of those digital skills gaps, it's really about exploring new recruitment methods and engaging with perhaps even neurodiverse individuals. There's a lot of evidence that promotes their skill sets as being one that's quite adept to completing digital occupations. And again, just that, as has been said before, there is an ageing workforce, and that coupled with automation across the labour market is going to sort of drive further for these digital skills to ensure those that their jobs that are perhaps at risk of automation can maybe sort of transition into digital skills coding sort of occupations to sort of drive that automation rather than losing their jobs to it as well. So yeah, happy to discuss this further out with the call if anyone wants to pick up on it.
Brilliant, thanks Bethany. Conscious of time, but I do want to go. I know Neil said he's been very patient. Neil, would you like to ask a question?
Yes, hi. I've really enjoyed this discussion. I think it could probably run on for many hours, and lovely to hear all the presentations and the great work that's going on. I guess it's a big question actually, and some of you have alluded to it, and Archie mentioned this in terms of, you know, attracting the rising stars. But there is a bit of a perfect storm happening at the moment in the UK, and probably you could say across the world, and that is the fact that there are tens of thousands of jobs required to meet the net zero agenda. Now, no disrespect to, you know, Robertson's and Ashwood, but there will still be the same number of homes roughly in 10, 20, 30 years time that need retrofitted. And that's the key to certainly decarbonising heat. So, you know, we need to get a much bigger workforce into domestic electrical for renewables, insulation installers, joiners, carpenters, heating engineers, plumbers. And I'm afraid to say that the way that our economy has gone, a lot of youngsters being attracted into the higher level degrees and not into further education colleges, we are now facing this massive growing deficit. And it's more than that, because we've had Brexit and COVID, we've had many Eastern Europeans going back home or not coming into the country in the first place. I know from our supply chain at Warmworks Scotland, we manage the Scottish Government's Warmer Home Scotland scheme and other projects now, including a new London project, one in Orkney as well, doing EWI, IWI, and we are wanting to work more closely with the likes of Graham and Diane's college with their training centre that's coming, and other colleges, etc., and the universities for graduates. We bring graduates in at almost kind of even below entry level for our customer service team, and they come with fantastic degrees, but that's the kind of level they're having to start up to work up through the industry. But there is this mismatch in the skills that are required. My personal feeling is that we actually need to start even younger. We have to get into primary school, P6 and 7, and start sowing the seeds in terms of domestic electricians and plumbers. There are far too few females going into our industry as well in the trades. There's a massive deficit. So I suppose the question is, how do we collectively put all our interests, our own organisational, commercial interests to one side to work together to achieve net zero? Massive question. I don't expect you to answer it today, but maybe you've got a few ideas about how we could do this.
It's a really good point, and I think you're right, especially when it comes to electricians and plumbers. Actually, I raised this issue yesterday. Obviously, if you look at the energy infrastructure now, obviously it's electricity and gas primarily, and just to kind of summarise, the 2018 World Cup, in the cup final, National Grid had to pump hydrogen through the system because there are so many kettles going on at halftime. Now, my question is, how are you going to power everyone's cars if some kettles are going to buckle a grid? I think the infrastructure has to be there, and I think there has to be a lot more done for the grid. And obviously, as far as jobs go, green jobs, renewable jobs, looking at obviously electricity, looking at green hydrogen. And you're right, hopefully, obviously green hydrogen's not something we primarily obviously create, but we have, in effect, a lot of distilleries that are also now looking into green hydrogen, so it's something we're obviously aware of. There's projects up and down the country, Inverness, Aberdeen, and I think that it's really important that from a young age that kids understand that these jobs are there. Like you're saying, obviously, I myself went to university. I'm doing nothing to do with my degree. My degree was in music. So, but I think it's important, especially for college students, to understand that, if you go to college, this is what you can achieve. And even from high school, even from primary school, green jobs, definitely, I think in the next kind of 10, 15 years, well, hopefully the infrastructure will be put in there, and hopefully the funding and the money will be put there so that, like you said, we can reach our 2045 goals.
Thanks. And listen, can I just carry on? Thanks, Gavin. I know we're just late all the time, but if we're happy to keep the discussion going, then we can just stay on. If everybody needs to dash off, they can dash off. But if people are happy to stay on, and I think the discussion's going quite well, so if we're happy to stay on, we can keep going if you like.
Yeah, I think so.
Ron, did you want to come in there just on that point from Neil about that very large question that he asked?
Yeah. I mean, I think, very important question. Two things, I think, as Neil said, we could talk about this for the rest of the day, I think, and probably for the rest of the year. So many issues, but I think the one thing that jumps out to us all really is that achieving net zero is going to change everything. And I don't think many people yet really appreciate how much it's going to have to change all sorts of aspects, not just of our industry, obviously, but of the whole way that we work together as a society. And the industry's not alone in that. We'll have to change a long way. But going back to the point about the skills and getting people interested in the industry, I absolutely agree. One of the campaigns that we're with Construction Scotland that we're pushing hard on to try and get funding from CITB and government is to continue with something that we did for a couple of years as a pilot called Inspiring Construction. And this was about consistently getting people from industry, champions from industry, particularly young people who've made a career out of the industry, to get into schools at the critical ages where we tend to lose people. You do find that in primary schools, kids are interested in construction. I mean, maybe it's the Bob the Builder effect. The basic act of creation and creating things and building things is almost intuitive, and kids love it. But we lose them in the early stages of secondary school when they're diverted onto other streams, particularly the girls. And as you say, they end up going into degrees, which, I mean, I'm a civil engineer. I did a degree in civil engineering, and I've been a civil engineer all my life. So, it's kind of, I had a plan there, just go and build something, and you do it. But too many degrees seem to end up not resulting in a career path for people. And we end up sort of, mopping up at the end, and people then find their vocation in a different stream. What we're trying to do is what a company like Robertson, I'm sure, does. Most companies do is close projects as part of the community benefits. So happen to be in a school that's close to a Robertson site or a Alfred site, or you will probably be exposed to people coming in, young engineers talking about careers, crafts, trainees coming in talking. But if you're not, it's a bit of a lottery. There's 360 secondary schools. There's goodness knows how many primary schools. So we'll get nobody from construction coming in. We can't really possibly expect the careers advisors to know a lot about our particular profession and our industry. So we feel the industry needs to do a lot more and more consistently, but we need a bit of funding to help centrally control that and make sure that every primary school, every secondary school gets a kind of consistent message. And that's what we're trying to aim, is that if Robertson go in, or if the Institution of Civil Engineers goes in, or if Ashwood Construction goes in, that at least part of it is a common message about the range of opportunities within construction. We are an industry that employs people from a very diverse educational background, as we just covered. You can come in as a postgrad, or you can come in straight from school almost, and there will be a career path for you. And it's an industry that works in every part of the country, not just in the city centres in swanky offices. It works in Shetlands, it works in the Highlands, it works in the borders. All the towns and cities have got needs for, in fact, we need more in these rural areas than we need in the centre. So Inspiring Construction is what it's called. We're making another pitch for a bit more funding. Skills Development Scotland know about it. I think Elaine Ellis is our link in there. She knows that we've done this in the past. It's just getting funding for it to do it again. And basically what it means is that every part of construction would be encouraged to get into schools and to use the common message, that's broader. So even if you're wanting to go in to talk about roofers, you actually give the bigger picture of the whole range of skills. If you're going in to encourage people to become chartered surveyors, you also give the big picture about the range of skills that's available, including roofers and tilers and slaters, plasterers, plumbers, whatever. It's just trying to catch people and then keep visiting and keep providing good examples of all the digitization and the net zero things that are going on. And yeah, I guess nobody wants to spend their lives standing in a muddy field wearing a hard hat and a yellow jacket. So although many people will still have to do that in the future, we need to show that actually you can have a very diverse range of employment within construction, and it isn't all about digging holes and putting pipes in. It's about all sorts of stuff. You could be sitting in front of a computer screen all your career if you really want to do that. Anyway, so I've said enough, but that was the two bits I wanted to get across there.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks, Ron. Listen, Norrie said, Norrie, you've had your hand up for a while. Could you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't know if you can see me. There's a lot of light being reflected here. Yeah, thanks to everybody. That was very good. I'm going to come at it from a slightly different angle, which clearly the industry is very, very busy at the moment with a lack of, I would say, experience involved, because being a bit of a dinosaur, unfortunately, these days, the industry has been taken over by digital things, CAD, and very automated. I'm not so sure if it has the same effect on the actual success of the projects, because the more we become automated, the worse things seems to get, or at least that's what I'm finding. However, I've researched LED lighting since 1999, and I've seen the good, the bad, and ugly of it. Unfortunately, I've had some tough times, but we've come through very, very well. And what I would like to say is that if well, Heriot-Watt probably have somebody, but any of the colleges for students that were interested in lighting, I would be more than happy to come in and develop that with the students, if that was of interest. On LED lighting in particular, not just the fact that I look after 10 manufacturers, but I would like to approach this with Gavin, if I may, because Robertson Group are, indirectly, we do a fair bit of work on your projects. It's always the M&E consultant engineers that we start with. And I find it extremely difficult that now we've developed all the digital stuff to accommodate schools, for instance. If you take the Highland region, where you've got schools all over the place, we've developed an emergency lighting system through Clevertronics, where you could sit in your office and you could go through all the schools and find out if they've got a faulty fitting. We've got one controller that operates up to 1,000 fittings, and so on and so on. The technology that we've spent a lot of money on, or they have, in fact, we've got AECOM to have AECOM consultants to do a survey on our actual sustainability, and Clevertronics is the name of the company, came out tops in the marketplace. So when you could sit in your office and control many schools and find out all that, at the press of a button, I'm astounded that a lot of the time I get, well, you can't use that, Sonny, you're not in the framework. So how does that change?
That's a fair point. To me, I think if you look at the industry, we went very heavily to AI. Everything is digital, computerized. But you now look at the industry and what we're doing. We're looking at timber frames. What were they doing 200 years ago? They're using timber frames. We seem to be going back, and we seem to be understanding, I think, the importance of sustainability within our own country. So, it was all well and good a few years ago where everyone was able to buy materials very cheap. You would have to import them. Obviously, that had a huge negative effect on the world. And now everyone's starting to go back to basics. And I think that is what's required. So, like you're saying, obviously, about your lighting, some of the technology is fantastic. But where does it stop? And I think, I suppose, from your point in the industry, it's, if you look at, I suppose, your cost saving from your LED lights, so obviously they last longer. The fact that you've got the software that can basically connect, turn off, turn on everything, you've got huge energy saving costs there as well. So I think it's all about finding the balance between the two. So we have to be a lot more sustainable. We have to understand that, a lot of these materials, we can't just grow. And I think so it's important that we look at even the recycling of components. We look at basically the full life cycle of any material, and find the best and most practical way of reusing. So I hope that answers your question. Sorry.
Well, it does, and thank you for that. I just, when you're looking at the products that's been developed and a lot of money spent on them, the life expectancy of these batteries, for instance, is 15 years. Well, officially 12 years plus, it says, to be honest. So when it comes to recyclability, normally emergency lighting batteries are changed every 4 years, and they're on a larger scale, these ones are very, very small. So when it comes to getting rid of these batteries, it's much, much easier. So the whole sustainability package does not come onto in the framework. It's actually in the ability of what the product does. And I think that's very important. And that's what the construction industry is not looking at the moment. They're looking too much at the price and not enough at the end result. But anyway, that was very good. Thank you very much. And my offer still stands to anybody. I'd be delighted to help, and so would my colleagues, should that be of interest. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Norrie. Excellent. Thank you. So we've got a couple of hands up still. Neil, did you want to come back on something?
Yes. Hi, just quickly to say I saw my colleague Arlene Nichol from Developing Your Workforce was on before. I don't know if Arlene's still on. But yeah, I mean, Developing Your Workforce is the interface between, industry and schools and colleges, obviously, further and higher education, I guess. And, for me, it's a bit like motherhood and apple pie. Why wouldn't you do this? I suppose the constraint the industry has is the time. If you're busy delivering stuff, going into schools every day, which I would be happy to do every day of my life. I just did a talk yesterday on solar to the young kids in my daughter's class at Springfield in Linlithgow. It was fantastic. The questions, the awareness is just off the charts. And, we don't actually appreciate enough the power of a young mind and how they can shape the future. We need to get kids more empowered and involved in actual delivery of stuff, and the intergenerational stuff too. You've got some incredibly talented retired engineers and so on and so forth in this town. One of them has just helped me to upgrade my solar charging kit, believe it or not. And the talent that's out there. So how do we bring this together? I think Developing Your Workforce is a mechanism for doing that. And by the way, I've just sent you a message, Ron, because I'd like to come and visit your centre in Hamilton with maybe some of the Warmworks staff. So that would be good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Neil. Jim, you've had your hand up there. Do you want to jump in?
Thanks, David. Yeah, no, this is great. The thing I'd make probably just more as a comment is it's just around the fact that the talk around these things, and I think there seems to be, even amongst this screen, there's kind of agreement of what we do. But I think for me, the thing that's going to make a difference is a strategic and long-term commitment to achieving the stuff that particularly Neil was saying. And I suppose that's my comment. And again, second comment is currently we have record unfilled vacancies across as many industries as you want to name. We've also got a record high unemployment in the kind of medium term. Those two don't reconcile. So I think the challenge for us, and maybe this group can contribute towards some of that, is that there has to be a longer term commitment to meaningful change, and we have to be able to evidence it by step progress. Again, I think glass definitely half full. Because I think there's a huge opportunity. I think there's huge changes needed in kind of societal thinking and the choices that people are making in terms of careers.
Thanks, Jim. Good point. So I saw your hands up. I think they may be old hands. Can I just, at this point, I suppose one thing that the panel and the group is sort of keen to stress is that I know sometimes with these webinars happening, there's no real sort of follow-up. I think there's a couple of bits to the follow-up today, is if MD does have any specific issues that can be helped along by whether it's West Lothian College or the uni or West Lothian Council Business Gateway, then please, as we said, we'll send around the slides. All the contact details are on there, so please reach out to the respective bodies if you get any specific issues that they guys can help with. But also, I think we're certainly keen that this is not a standalone and a one-off event. we're certainly keen to keep the discussion going over the next couple of months. So I think we have provisionally looking at a February date for a kind of follow-up session. So we'll be sending around details of that as that starts to take shape. But I think certainly even just from today, there's clearly some questions and things that have come up that won't be solved in one go, and the debate will rumble on. But I think it's good to keep the debate going. So as I said, we're looking to have a follow-up event, and in the meantime, any questions about the things you've heard today, whether it even be from Gavin, please feel free to send stuff to us, and we'll forward it on to Gavin, for example, at Robertson Group. But any questions, any follow-up you want, please do send it in, and we'll make sure that it gets followed up.
David, can I just intercept? So with regards to the follow-up, we are going to send out questions that we would hope that you answer, and it
Sure.
ties into what Ron was saying about local hubs being created. Ultimately, what we are trying to create is a consultation of sorts. The Diane's touched on it, and it's already been mentioned by the likes of Neil and Gavin alluded to it as well. I mean, speaking about the green and blue energy, so we're already working with industry on a consultation specific to chemical process engineering, and that will cross over to certain areas within construction, I'm sure. And likewise, what we're hoping to do is garner information from industry that will ultimately lend Heriot-Watt and West Lothian College and the Gateway to being able to help your business. So the questions that we send round, if you can please get back to us on those, and any questions that we've not asked and you would want to feed back on, certainly there's going to be a section for you to feedback on anything else that we've not noted or that we're not aware of. So yeah, please do look out for the next date that we're going to put into the diary and come along and be part of the kind of bigger conversation. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for reminding me, Lynn. Thank you. Listen, just from my point of view, just thanks to everyone, the speakers, the panel, and also the audience for your participation today. I think we had a really good discussion there about some of the key issues. So my thanks to you all. Unless anybody has any questions, I'm happy to close it there. Conscious we ran over a wee bit, but I think it was worth keeping the discussion going.
Yeah, thanks, David. Thanks, everybody. It's nice to see you all. Have a good day.
Thanks for having me. Cheers, thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.